Welcome to this Advent devotional series. I am Reverend Lester Spees, and I have the privilege of serving as pastor at Memorial Lutheran Church in Glendale, Wisconsin. During this Advent season, I will be reflecting on some tough questions that come from Scripture and on some sacred spaces that have helped me to respond to those tough questions. Thank you for joining me in this journey. Today's devotion is for Sunday, November 27th, 2022. And the tough question comes from 1 Kings 18:21. Elijah then came near to all the people and said, "How long will you go limping between two different opinions?" Making decisions can be an easy, straightforward, and simple process for me. It can be, and sometimes it is. But many other times it is not. This is particularly true when I'm given more than one choice that makes sense. And it seems to be especially challenging for me to make a decision when the choices get narrowed down to two good options. I think that's part of the reason why I hated multiple choice questions on exams when I was in school. I usually had no problem eliminating two of the four options. The problem came when it was down to two options. I almost always picked the wrong one. Maybe that is why, when given the choice of two relatively good options that both have their pros and cons, I sometimes get stuck, even frozen, with a complete inability to make a decision. When this happens, it is not as though I make no choice, although that can certainly happen. I usually end up making the choice to take more time to gather additional information and delay a decision until such a time when it is revealed to me which decision is clearly the right one. This very project that you are hearing now is one example of how I can take way too long to respond to an idea that comes into my brain for consideration. More than a year before I started writing these devotions, the idea came to me to do what you hear before you. This idea was formed in the place where many such ideas are formed, in my car during my drive to and from work. I spend about 40 minutes on the road each day, and the time that I spend on the road is generally some of my most creative and innovative time. Those are often the quietest moments of the day where I can be with my thoughts in a more focused manner. Flashes of ideas may come to me on a drive. Most of those flashes are gone from my brain almost as quickly as they appear. They appear for a moment and then they're gone forever. But once in a while, as with the idea for this devotion, the ideas come back, and keep coming back until I finally do something with them. Jonah had the big fish for his space to consider God's call to share the divine word with the people of Nineveh. When Jonah didn't listen to God's call initially, God provided an opportunity for him to be swallowed up by the big fish and to spend 3 days contemplating his choices. Moses had the burning bush, where he heard the voice of God and spent some time debating the wisdom of God's choice with the divine. In each of these cases, and in all such cases in Scripture, ultimately God wins, and the servant of God obeys and fulfills the call. And God is always there to provide strength and guidance as needed. Although my time of wrestling between two or among more choices can and does happen in all kinds of places and at all kinds of times, More often than not, it seems that the place of such fights and struggles tends to be in the quiet of my car. The year, make, and model have changed over the decades. It was once a Chevy S10. That was during my seminary days. The Ford Explorer became the location for contemplation for most of my early ministry. The Saturn SL, the least favorite of the models that I owned, got me through the late 90s and early 2000s. For the last 13 or so years, the Toyota RAV4 has served as the place where visions could be received and debated. The cars have changed over the decades. What hasn't changed is the need for a space to contemplate the options, wrestle with the choices, and ultimately to make a decision to heed the call of God and to do what I'm being asked to do. In addition, what hasn't changed is my thanksgiving for the time, the space, and the presence of God through the struggle. Someday, perhaps, I will learn how to make the decision-making process go more quickly and respond to God and to people more swiftly. But for now, I rejoice in the time and space God has given me to vision, reflect, wrestle, consider, and be strengthened for the journey, however long it takes.